let's go ahead and get started. Would you please introduce yourself?
My name is Virginia DeLuca, and I go by Ginny.
Jenny.
And I'm the
Okay.
author at As If You Must Go, I Wish You Triplets.
Let's go. I Wish You Triplets. Yes. And I heard about this book because you excerpted it or kind of did something for the New York Times Modern Love column.
Yeah, I mean, writing for the Modern Love essay is like a holy grail, right? So I probably have submitted many. Probably this was my fourth or fifth submission. Um, and so it was wonderful. It was a wonderful surprise to get it.
Okay. And I like hearing that. I want everybody to hear because I have heard from some of my listeners, the Dating While Gray podcast listeners, and they're like, I've submitted this modern love essay. So I love that it took four on your fifth try was a charm.
And also, I mean, I often will say to people, it's worth writing it because then you can take pieces of it and submit it to other places when it gets rejected. So my first rejection became a contest from Writer magazine that won first prize for the
Oh,
essay for,
wow.
whatever year it was. And it was such a good boost,
Yeah.
to say, yes, the story is interesting. Okay, all right, I'm
Yeah.
good.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So, as the podcast host of Dating While Gray, only of all the people I have ever interviewed since 2020, only one person told me that they never saw the split coming, that they were totally blindsided. And so you are now kind of the second person. You say you actually were blindsided. Before we talk about that, tell me a little bit about your relationship history before you met Perry.
So I was married very young. I married my high school sweetheart. And so we were together. I keep thinking about this now. My grandchild, oldest grandchild is 14. I met my first husband at 15. That is so terrifying. I was like, oh my God, you can't do this. But I mean, we obviously didn't get married right away. So I got married at 21 and had three sons, wonderful sons. And then I got divorced when I was around 39. Um,
That was a long marriage.
it was a long marriage.
Yeah.
I was I was the instigator of that divorce. Um,
Uh-huh.
and I really, it was a good decision. So,
Yep. And then how old were you when you met Perry and how did you meet him?
I took a little rest for a while. I had a lot of teenagers in my life. My brother had died
Mhm.
previously, and so I had three of his kids hanging out a lot with me and, college and all that kind of stuff. And I had a very close friend who said, nobody is going to come and knock on your door. You must leave the house if you want to get involved with somebody else.
So true.
So back in the day, we didn't have all the, Tinder, et cetera, et cetera. I did personals in the Boston Globe. And that's how Perry and I met.
Okay. And let's also say you are also you're not only an author, you're a psychotherapist.
Yes.
That's your career. Okay. Okay. So clear, obviously, from this memoir, we can ascertain that you got divorced. And I don't want to give too many details, but I just want to. So you were married to Perry for how long?
Officially married for 9. We were together for 14.
Okay. And
14
what,
years.
and then tell me about one day, just something happened.
Yeah. This was definitely, I mean, I really fell in love. I thought we fell in love together. I loved being married to him. I had a good time. We had a lot of fun. Um, and and I was traveling back and forth from Maine to New Hampshire. We lived in New Hampshire at the time. And I was, sort of the end of the day, and I got a text saying, sorry, I won't be home And I had a terrible day. So, as I'm driving home, I'm texting, or I'm not really texting while I'm driving, but I'm giving a call and sort of saying what's happening. I'm leaving and I'm getting messages. And when I
Because
got
this is unusual for him, right? This you
very unusual. Usually the texts are things like, "Oh, dinner's all prepared. Don't eat junk food," that kind of thing. And so he wasn't home and he wasn't answering the calls. He wasn't answering the texts. And finally, he answered and said that he was staying at a hotel. He had drank too much and he didn't want to come home, which was very unusual. He was not a drinker, and he was only a town away. And so that was the end. And then in the morning, I woke up to a series of emails suggesting that he was really, he really wanted to, he was unhappy and he wanted to leave.
mhm. And he was 60 years old at the time.
At the time, he was 60. Yeah.
Um, and how old were you?
61.
60. Okay, so this is like what's going on. And you wrote that a friend of yours, so kind of a long story short, but also not to give too much away in the book. He wants a divorce, and he wants a divorce because he never had children of his own. And he's saying he wants the opportunity to have children, but he doesn't give many more details than that. And you wrote that a friend of yours thought maybe he had a brain tumor. And I love that because I mean, only that I love that because I used to say the same thing about my now ex. It's like, oh my God, he must have a brain tumor or something's going on because why would he want to leave me? And so I just want to stress that because this is how out of character it was for him. But looking back, do you think did you miss any signs that you should have seen?
I definitely have spent an enormous amount of time looking at at that possibility. I do not believe I could have I missed any signs. I now think that, he was exceptionally nice. He was exceptionally kind. We had a lot of sort of mutual connections that went back and forth. What I realize is that his level of expression, obviously, he was a hider. So if he was unhappy about something, he might not necessarily talk about it. So we had developed a little bit of shorthand where I'd sort of say, "So, what's your emotional temperature? How are you doing?" Because he looks always so even.
Oh,
So those kinds of things. But, if people want to hide, they really want to hide.
right. And it took him a while to finally tell you the truth or to divulge all the details of, what was going on and all the crying. And it reminded me, I don't know if you saw The Golden Bachelor, but he cried a lot. And people, on the one hand, people were saying, oh, he's so in touch with his feelings. And I was thinking, you know what? He cries as a way to deflect. He doesn't, because once somebody starts crying, you want to just do like this. And I wonder, do you think Perry's tears were manipulative, or do you think he was really struggling?
Um, I'm not sure who he was crying for. I think he was struggling in the sense of, "Oh, I wanted to be in this new relationship, but I don't want Ginny to feel bad about it."
Right, right.
Um, and
Yeah,
so in that way, yes, manipulative, I think.
yeah. And it just, for me, it got emotionally tedious reading about how dragged out this was. And I don't on the one hand, I'm thinking maybe it's because I was sort of, kind of done the similar thing. Like it's easier for me as a reader instead of being in the moment. But did you feel like he was dragging this out?
Yes, and also it made me nuts because my feeling is I just want the truth. I know that we're already going to separate. It's not like I'm assuming that this is going to change anything. I just want to know what the facts are. What are the facts?
Right.
He really had a hard time. He really didn't want to admit to it. And then he would just hand out little snippets, which would change for me my emotional equilibrium. And it was like, what does this mean? And then I would start to worry, like, whoa, now he's really sick. Maybe there's really a problem. Maybe I'm not supposed to be all angry and annoyed. Maybe I should be compassionate and sweet. It's like that kind of, it was very, and then when he was calling and approaching me and reaching out to me because he was unhappy about something in terms of health issues, or I was like, what is this about? Um,
Yeah. He was still looking for, it sounds like, for emotional support,
mhm,
but in a very unhealthy way for you. It
mhm.
seemed like a very unhealthy dynamic. And you also wrote that you wondered for a long time if your life might have been different if you had initially said no. So he's asking you for a divorce, and you're like, not like, okay, but you don't fight about it. You don't argue about it. And that upset me as a woman that you even felt that way. Do you still feel that way?
No, not at all. I mean, I think at the time I said, you don't want me? Go. I'm out of here. You don't want me? I don't have anything to do with you. I was not about to feeling like I was fighting in that stuff. On the other hand, I think I read this in the book that I had read an article that said, if you fight for your husband, or she had fought for her husband and he had had an affair or something like that, and then they got back together. And I thought maybe I shouldn't have just given up so fast. Um, so those were doubted thoughts, right? Thoughts that
Right.
you sort of wake up in the middle of the night going, oh, maybe I did it wrong.
Is that advice you would give your patients to fight for your marriage?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think it depends completely on what the story is. Um, and I mean, I wouldn't, given that, that's an interesting question. Given, that the presentation was, I want a divorce. My feeling is then you need to figure out how you want to respond to that. His presentation was not, oh, I'm kind of feeling unhappy.
Right.
Maybe we should be in couples therapy. His presentation was, sort of, I've come to this decision and it is my decision.
Right. And
Yeah.
I'm asking you this as someone who kind of probably hung on to her marriage longer than I should have.
Hmm.
Being married to somebody who was presenting as indecisive, but
Hmm.
he wasn't actually indecisive. He knew what he wanted. I just didn't hear it because he didn't use the words that I needed to hear to let go.
Right.
So,
And I was angry at him at first, not sort of leading me up. It's an interesting thing. There's an old joke that says somebody's watching a cat, babysitting for a cat. And they say, well, the cat went out. And the next day, the cat is on the roof. And then the next day it's like, oh, the cat, fell off the roof and now is gone. And the part of the joke is, but why didn't you tell me at the beginning? And it's sort of like, well, I wanted to give you a chance to get over. And that was what I kept thinking over and why didn't he just give me some steps? Like, it's really, I feel bad. And then
right,
instead it was just boom. So that
right.
that was hard.
And can you explain the title of the book?
So in the process of, going through, because I did a lot of calling, like, and what's happening, and what do you mean, and what's going on, and da da da. And at some point when I was yelling at him, I said, fine, if you must go, I wish you triplets. And
because he said it. Yeah, he said he wanted to leave to remind everybody he wanted to leave because he felt like he wanted to have children. He felt like he had missed it, but he originally said there was nobody else. He had not even discussed this with anybody. It was just something he came through on his own mind. In the end, it seems like so. What I like to say on the podcast is everybody's story is unique, but at the same time, it's universal. We can all relate to things. And in the end, it seems like maybe he was just really a cliche. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I kept saying, I mean, very near at the after he left, I kept saying, this is such an ancient story, older woman gets left for younger woman. Um, and it's like, I don't want this cliche. I don't like this story. I
Yeah.
don't want it to be my story. Um,
Right.
but it really is.
Yeah. And when you say you don't want it to be your story, I'm wondering if there was also, you didn't want that to be his story either. Do you know what I mean? You wanted him, if he was going to leave, it seems to me you would want him to leave for a non cliched reason. I don't know.
Yeah, right. What was really going on? But he did a lot of time talking about, oh, but we had such a wonderful relationship. Oh, it was so nice, which made me think, for a while I was thinking maybe he had an affair and got somebody pregnant. And so now he has to feel that he has to do the right thing or whatever that might have meant to him. Right.
Right. Do you, why do you think it did take him so long to, after all you had been through together and your relationship and all the opportunities he had to tell you everything that you needed to hear, why do you think it took him so long?
I don't know the answer to that. I still don't know the complete story. He still has not really finished the story. Uh,
Mm,
So it was really, I think he was a coward, basically. He didn't really want to say he had, I'm imagining, because again, he has never said this, that he had an affair of some length of time and and then decided that he wanted to marry this person.
right. But even, I'm just laughing at all the gyrations that he went through and the details he gave you that were just a little bit off, but close. I mean, it's not funny. I don't,
It is kind of funny.
I mean, yeah,
As I was as I was when after as this happened, I was just journaling because it was like nothing makes sense. I'm just going to keep writing it down. I'm going to keep the emails. I'll keep the texts. Maybe maybe I'll understand it at the end.
right.
Um, and as I was then went to a memoir class and started to, take all that mass of journal stuff and try to craft it into a memoir that might be interesting. Um, People laughed, and I kept thinking, wow, this is the most painful part of my life. And it's funny. And it kind of was funny.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us laugh in recognition too. I don't want,
Yeah, I
as I
mean,
said before,
nobody's laughing at my pain. People
no,
are laughing
no,
because it was
no.
absurd. Yeah.
Right. And it is so much easier to talk about a relationship when you're not in it or to
Yeah.
see it for what it is when you're not in it. And I think too, when you've been married to somebody for a while, you have a tendency to want to defend them and defend their behavior, even if they're, I love it. You have something that one of your sons, I believe, said, if you decide you're going to get back together, forget all the ugly stuff I ever said about him. And I thought that was so great that he was able to pivot like that, kind of like, if you're going to end up splitting, I'm team mom. But if you end up back together, then I'm team couple. And I thought that was really mature.
Yeah. 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 So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's because all those kinds of the end, any marriage for everybody, it impacts many more people than the couple.
Yeah.
Even if there aren't kids specifically to that union. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to go back, he had been married once and then widowed once? Is that was his relationship?
So he had been officially married right after college, and then he got divorced, and then he was in a very long-term relationship, and that woman died of breast cancer.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, so you are a psychotherapist. Do you think that played any role, looking back, in either you choosing Perry or him choosing you, or how he acted during the marriage or during the split?
You mean as being a therapist because I'm a therapist?
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I would imagine yes, because it's very hard to be whoever we are, and that was clearly part of who I am. Um, I think for me, in terms of the split, it was really sort of the non-belief, I had to struggle with my own denial with it. Like, this is really doesn't make any sense, so therefore it doesn't happen.
right.
Um, so I knew things like, well, it sounds a lot like denial, Ginny. It sounds like you're not paying attention to the reality here.
Yeah,
I had a voice that was saying that, saying, and you're talking to this person again, why? That kind of thing. But I was having, I was having a hard time with that. Uh,
absolutely. I
yeah,
can understand that. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm very happy, actually.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, it's an interesting thing to go through and sort of say, I'm actually very glad that he left.
Mm,
Um,
because,
Well, it turns out that it was not the marriage that I knew, that I thought it was, which means that I have been able to pivot into having really strong relationships and in a life that feels very authentic. And clearly that one wasn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
May I ask if you're seeing anybody?
No, not currently.
And how is he doing today?
So he is, as far as I know, he's married and he has twins who are six, about or seven, somewhere 6 or 7 years old. Yeah.
Mhm. So, do you think he got what he wanted?
I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah, well, we shouldn't speak for him anyway. Okay. Is there anything else we need to know?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think I mean, my feeling about this is it's can be very painful to lose relationships, and it's
Mhm.
very risky when we enter into a relationship because, oh my goodness, they might go, or I might go, or it might not work. And I guess I always say, love is a big risk, but
Mhm.
the only way not to experience some of that pain is to not to love. And then you're living, it's too hard. It's too hard to live without love.
Right.
So I guess that's sort of the message. It's worth it.
Yeah,
And it's really, yeah, I mean, I guess that's, and
I
we
love that.
and we can't control the way how other people are going to respond. We People are going to do whatever they're going to do, and
Right.
we only have some control over how we're going to respond to that.
Right. And let me just put in a plug for everybody just being kind to each other as well. If you
Mhm.
are unhappy, I know it's hard to talk about it, especially with the person you're unhappy with, but this needs to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
for everybody's sake. But
And I really was determined. I was like, I am not going to be bitter. That was like a very clear goal. And so I had to spend some time to, I definitely felt sorry for myself. I definitely felt martyry, like, oh my God, after all I've done for blah, blah, blah. I
right,
definitely, but I didn't want to end up there. I was
right.
let myself go through those feelings like, oh, but I didn't really want to end up there. Um,
Yeah, that's great. Well, I thank you for your time, Ginny DeLuca. If you must go, I wish you triplets. And thanks so much for talking with us.
thank you.